It's great to be here this morning. I must confess, this church and this particular pastor, as well as Jackie, this is my idea of what church should be today. It's not so contemporary that you don't recognize anything from the past, and it's not so traditional that it just hasn't kept up with the times at all. It's the best of both worlds. So I really like coming here. Everything that the vision of especially Lonnie, but the people here, you've captured, I think, what the church needs to be today, even on your values, what you value. You're not about yourselves. You're about reaching out with the good news of Christ. You're about helping other people, caring for them. So it's great to be here. It's an honor to be here this morning. So I want to ask you a question this morning. Are you all ready for Christmas? Yeah? So how many of you have put your Christmas tree up already? Got it all decorated? Anybody? There? Yeah, quite a few of you. Okay. Got it done. Maybe you waited until after Thanksgiving, but you got her done, and it's up. Maybe you got a wreath hanging on your front door. Maybe you went outside and you risked life and limb hanging off the roof by putting Christmas lights on all your eaves and putting decorations in your yard. Made everything outside and inside beautiful, just really making it look very nice. You got the stockings hanging over the fireplace. Got that done. Some of you, how many of you went out yesterday on Black Friday? Yeah, a few of you did. You survived. You lived to tell about it. How many of you getting ready for tomorrow, Black Monday online? You got your list and you're all ready to push those buttons and order everything. Yeah. Okay. So you're really getting ready for Christmas. You're almost all ready, and you're prepared. You're preparing yourself for celebrating Christmas. You know, I'm not sure that's what John the Baptist had in mind when he talked about being prepare the way of the Lord. I don't know that that's what he had in his head. I think he had something different. His message that God gave to him in his unique role was to prepare the way for the Lord. And this is what I really want to focus on this morning. He said, prepare the way for the Lord. Make a clear and straight path in your life for the coming of the Lord. That's really what it means to prepare for Christmas. That's what we're doing today. We're preparing for the coming of the Lord. We're preparing to celebrate that Jesus Christ that he came to our world, and that he's going to come back someday. He's going to return. We're doing both. We're celebrating his birth. We're celebrating his death, his resurrection. And we're also preparing our hearts and getting ready, being ready for the return of Christ. It may happen today. It may happen tomorrow. And we may die before it happens, but it's going to happen. Christ said that it would. So another way of saying make a clear, straight path for the Lord is get the road ready for the Lord. Make a straight path for him to travel. So John's message that God gave him to deliver raises the question, how have we prepared for the coming of the Lord? Is the road of our life straight? Is it clear? Is our road really for Christ? In other words, I got 4 words this morning. They're pretty easy to remember. Are we preparing at all? Are we ignoring all of that? Are we ignoring that for various reasons? Are we preparing to be invaded? Are we preparing to be inconvenienced? Or are we preparing to be inhabited? Those are the 4 words I want us to consider this morning. If we consider the coming of Jesus as our world being invaded, as if aliens have landed, an alien has landed in our world, then our road will not be clear. It won't be clear. In fact, it'll be just the opposite. It will be filled with barricades. Barricades. It will be fortified with defenses. It will even treat the Lord as an enemy, as an unwelcome intruder, as a hostile conqueror. This was King Herod's reaction to the Messiah when he heard that he had come. He made preparations to find this rival king, and he pretended to want to worship him. And then he sought to destroy him. You know, we may not be so violent when it comes to treating Jesus as an invader, but nevertheless, our attitudes and maybe even our actions towards him might be the same. There's places in our lives which we want to continue to have control over. There's parts to our lives that we're completely satisfied with, that we're just so comfortable with, that we don't want to change. And while the kingdom of our lives may not be as far-reaching or as great as Herod's was, we still have this innate, willful, natural desire to be the ruler of ourselves, sitting on our own individual thrones, not willing to give up any more power to the Lord than we have to, not even to the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords. And yet when John cried out, "Prepare the way for the Lord," he was not telling the world to prepare to be invaded. For that was not the kind of Lord that was coming, as one who wants to conquer and plunder. Instead, Jesus would be just the opposite. He would be a Lord who was humble. He would be a Lord who was a servant. He would be a Lord who was gentle. He would be a Lord who was loving. A Lord whose yoke would be easy and whose burden would be light. How can you treat someone like this as an invader? Or perhaps another response that we might have to the coming of Christ to our world would be one of just ignoring him, just not even caring or not even noticing, or maybe we're just so busy with our own priorities, and we're kind of like this that we don't even pay any attention to his coming. That's really what was going on when Jesus was born. Think about the Christmas stories that were written in Matthew and in Luke and a little bit in John. Hardly anybody noticed when Jesus was born into our world. Mary certainly noticed, you think? And Joseph, he noticed. And if you read the stories, there was a man named Zechariah and his wife Elizabeth. They noticed. And Elizabeth was pregnant at the time with John. And John, it's such a cool story. John noticed even before he was born. He leaped for joy in Elizabeth's womb. So he noticed, and the shepherds noticed. They were aware, but only because all these angels showed up. But if you read the stories, no one else noticed, not even the innkeeper. Everybody was totally ignorant of Jesus being born into our world. And that may be another response that we have to be aware of in our own life, that we not be ignorant, that we not be so busy doing what we do in our lives that we don't pay attention to his coming. It's interesting that Mark, as he starts his gospel, he doesn't mention anything about Jesus' birth. He goes, boom, right to John the Baptist being born. And I think maybe it was because so many people weren't aware of what had happened about 30 years before that. And I think even God was aware of that. That's one reason why God sent John the Baptist to play this role as a messenger, as a voice crying out in the wilderness. It might be one reason why he wanted John the Baptist to kind of be a very unique individual. I mean, it's pretty hard to ignore somebody wearing camel skins and munching on locusts and, while he's baptizing people and honey's on his beard and everything else. That guy kind of stands out a little bit, don't you think? And so that was really Mark's emphasis. That was Mark's Christmas story, so to speak. And the fact that John was there when Jesus was born, about 6 months ahead of Jesus, so to speak. So there's a tie-in. God wanted the world to know that his son had been born. God wanted the world to know that his son was now here on earth, that he had come in the flesh in the form of Jesus himself. And so that's what Mark really tried to have him pay attention to. Perhaps you don't have any problem in preparing for how clearly and how deeply to let the Lord be in your life. You're not ignoring him. You've done a pretty good job of not doing that. And you're not treating the Lord as an invader in your life. But thirdly, maybe ours is more of a time problem, of being inconvenienced in our life when it comes to the Lord. It's been my observation over the years that people generally feel closer to Christ during the seasons of Advent and Lent. And I'm speaking about all Christians here, and not just the ones who come to church at Christmas or on Easter. We do all these special things during Advent. We decorate the church. You're just getting started. You're going to have a lot more poinsettias show up. You're going to be doing a lot more things here. We have an Advent wreath we light. We go caroling. We have cantatas and Sunday school programs. We give and receive gifts and have parties. We do a great deal to celebrate the coming of the Lord as a baby, and it's just a wonderful time for so many people. But then, you know what? After about a month or so, it's all over with, and we put everything away, and the celebrating stops, and our lives become more routine again, until we do it all over again the following year. The question this raises is this universal Christian practice of Christmas. Are we preparing to give the Lord a permanent place in our lives? Or are we merely treating the Lord as a temporary visitor. I'm assuming that most of us have had visitors to our home sometime, maybe for just an evening or a few days or maybe a few weeks, and on occasion maybe even a few months. And before they arrived as visitors, you spent some time preparing for their visit, like cleaning your house, running around making sure everything looks just perfect, and buying extra food, and planning activities you can do together. And your primary concern is that your visitor is comfortable and that they enjoy themselves. You don't mind being inconvenienced. You don't mind putting yourself out a little bit by changing your routine or making accommodations for them at your own expense. You don't mind because, generally speaking, you like your guests. You like your visitors when they come to visit you. And you're willing to make sacrifices for them. And it's rather nice to have a break in your pattern of living. But let's be honest. Let's be honest here. You don't mind this inconvenience because you know that at some point in time, your visitors are going to be leaving. They're going to be leaving. They're not going to be staying forever. I mean, once in a while, we'll have a visitor for an evening, and they come over, and they just don't know when to leave. And you go, oh boy, it's getting kind of late. I think it's, and you're trying to give hints. You're yawning and looking at your watch, and they're just having a great old time. And you almost just have to turn out the lights and go to bed for them to leave. And even then, they might stay. You know they're not going to stay forever. But when John the Baptist said, "Prepare the way for the Lord," he was not telling the world to prepare to be visited. That was not the kind of Lord that was coming. As one who is only going to stay for a temporary period of time. Instead, he would be just the opposite. He would be a Lord who, once he arrived, he would never leave. He entered the world as the Lord. He died on the cross as the Lord. He rose again as the Lord. He ascended into heaven as the Lord. And he baptizes us with the Spirit as the Lord from above. And someday, he's going to return. He's going to return to our earth as the Lord. But he also said, Jesus says, I will never leave you. I will never leave you. I'm here throughout the ages. I'm here to stay. And it's clear that when we invite him into our hearts, he will not be leaving. We're to make a clear and straight path for the Lord. We're not supposed to have a road in the shape of a U, where a path is leading to us and a path is leading away from us, for our visitors to come and to go. The path we're to clear is to be a straight path, which goes in only one direction, straight to our heart. And then lastly, the message of John to make a clear and straight path is to prepare to be inhabited, to prepare to be indwelled. Prepare to have Jesus change us by his coming to us. And believe it or not, Jesus can even do this, even if we celebrate his coming even as a baby, just as a baby. Reverend Dr. Bruce Thielman, in a sermon of Advent, he tells about a Bret Hart story called The Luck of Roaring Camp. And Roaring Camp was supposed to be, according to the story, the meanest and the toughest mining town in all the West. It was a terrible place to live. It was inhabited entirely by men. Entirely by men. And by one woman who tried to serve them all. And her name was Cherokee Sal. And Cherokee Sal, she died one day by giving birth to a baby. Well, these men, they really didn't know what to do. And they took the baby and they put the baby in a box with some old rags underneath her. And when they looked at this baby lying in this dirty old box, they decided it didn't look right. So they sent one of the men to travel 80 miles to buy a rosewood cradle. And so the man brought the cradle back, and they put the baby in the cradle, but the rags didn't look right there. So they sent another one of their members away, and he came back with some beautiful silk and lace blankets. And they put the baby in the rosewood cradle and the lace blankets. And it looked fine until someone happened to know that the floor underneath was filthy. So these hardened, tough men, they got down on their hands and knees and they scrubbed that floor until it was clean. And once they scrubbed the floor, they noticed that all the walls and the ceilings and the curtains looked absolutely terrible. And so they washed the walls and the ceiling, and they put curtains on the windows, and now things were really beginning to look pretty good. But you know what? They started looking at themselves, and they decided that they had to give up their fighting and their brawling and their drinking because the baby slept a lot, and babies can't sleep during a brawl. So the whole temperature, the whole being of Roaring Camp seemed to go down. And these men, they used to take this baby out and set her by the entrance to the mine in her rosewood cradle so they could see her when they came out of the mine. And then someone noticed that even that place didn't look right, so they planted flowers and they made a nice garden there. And they would bring this baby shiny little stones. And when they put their hands down next to her, they noticed that their hands were dirty. And so pretty soon the general store was out of soap and shaving gear and perfume because the men were cleaning themselves up because of this baby. And this baby changed everything. She changed everything. She started to inhabit the lives of these men. And that's the way it is with Christ coming to our world, even as a baby, but especially as a grown man. John the Baptist said, "Prepare the way of the Lord. Make a clear, straight path for the Lord, for this man named Jesus Christ." The Christ child enters into the world, God in the flesh. And Christ enters into every crevice in our life as the Lord of Lords. And then Christmas is forever. So it only remains for me to ask if Christmas is forever for you and for me. You know, my heart and yours are very much like deep, deep oceans, too deep for us to comprehend. But when we open ourselves up to the Lord, when we make a clear and straight path for the Lord to come into our life, and the Lord brings the angels, and he brings the light, and he brings the treasures of grace, and he brings hope and peace and joy and love. To everyone who extends the clear and straight invitation, he comes into our life and he brings all these things. And when he brings all these things into our life, it's then that Christmas is forever. My hope and my prayer for me and for you at this Christmas season, at the beginning today of this Advent season, is that we will let Christmas be forever. And we will invite this little one who comes into our world trailing all the clouds of glory from eternity itself, that we will let him have such dominance and power in our life, that we will be living out what John said so many years ago. Prepare the way of the Lord. Make a clear and straight path for him to travel. Amen.